going on, everybody? So for today's video, I was thinking that a good topic to go over would be things that either beginner riders or long time riders that have just essentially beginner skills, things that you should focus on that can help increase your ability as a rider and make you a more safer rider and just be able to do more in general. The first one would be understanding your friction zone, which is the point when your brake, or excuse me, when your clutch engages and the bike starts to move forward. So we're heading right over to my little course area that I like to practice on, and I will show you how that works in a moment. What's going on, everybody? Alrighty, so we're sitting here in a large parking lot, and one of the things I wanted to talk about today was learning friction control. So the way that a clutch works, let me turn this off for now. So the way that a clutch works is you have multiple packs in there, and when the clutch is engaged, which is how it is when it's open like this, then and you're in gear, then those discs in there, they're engaged, they're hitting together, they're transferring the power. When you pull your clutch in, they're releasing that. Now what's known as the friction zone is usually somewhere around here, when you start to slowly release it, and the bike will start to creep forward. So what's happening is as you're releasing it, those packs are beginning to engage. And so when they engage, that's when power is transferred and you start to move forward, in a nutshell. And so the thing that you need to understand is a new, or a seasoned rider, even there's people that have been riding for 20 years, and one of the best things I heard was that if you only took one class, or if you never took a class, and you've been riding for 40 years, that's cool, you're still a 40-year beginner. And I think Moto Jitsu said that he's a really great instructor. I recommend watching a lot of his videos. That's where I learned a lot of my stuff, and that's how I practice. But understanding your clutch control and your friction zone will help a lot in riding. One of the main things that would help is low speed maneuvering, understanding making tight turns, U-turns at a light, things like that. Understanding how to do those low speed maneuvers will help you immensely in becoming a much better rider. If you can tackle the slow speed stuff, then you just build up on that. So let me show you a couple things that you can do to kind of practice and kind of what the friction zone is and how it feels, and we can go from there. So when I start everything up in neutral, obviously right now nothing's happening because there's no gear. Once you put into gear, that's when the power starts to become transferred. So we pull our clutch in and I go to first gear. All right, now if you're a brand new rider, then what I recommend is you find a long parking spot like this, maybe have somebody bring the bike to you or something like that, and you just sit here and you let go. See, if I move this clutch, there's nothing happening, but if I get to a certain point, the bike starts to move. I pull it in, I brake, pull it out, the bike starts to move, and you can hear the RPMs dropping slightly. That's kind of your other cue, other than your visual of obviously moving. Your other cue is hearing those RPMs drop and the bike starts to move forward. And so I can sit here and I can walk this bike all day, and if I get a little too fast, I just pull the clutch back in, it slows back down. So that's the first part of practicing. The next thing I would say would be, obviously, you release it, you kind of walk it, and then when you start to get to moving, you can put your feet up, and then look, I'm not even all the way released. I can still hold it in this area, and if I let too much out and I don't give it any throttle, I don't know if you noticed, but the bike starts to buck. So I pull it back in just slightly, and I'm riding that friction zone. So this is what's happening right now, is I'm riding that friction zone, which is allowing the bike to smooth move but not buck. If I give it a little throttle, nothing happens. So that means I'm riding that friction zone right at that sweet spot right now. Now something that's good for is, like, let's say here, I want to take a U-turn, so I'm riding that zone, I look and I start to move. I just did a U-turn. Now obviously I did a little wide, and yours will be wide when you first start out, but the idea is to learn how to just do this first, and practice off of that. This is kind of nice that they have these little areas right here, so I can kind of go around them and find something big. A parking lot, parking spots are good to kind of practice, but I can sit here and I can go around. And if you notice, I'm not giving any throttle and I'm slowly picking up speed. So it's okay, I need to slow down a little bit more. I give it a little bit of brake, pull that clutch in, and now go back to that friction zone. So you can sit here and ride this zone all day to really get the skills, because then when it becomes secondhand to you, then you can do things where you take off, you know, quick. So I can pull the zone, so I know exactly where my zone is right there. So I can basically release to that, and if I want to take off, I can just, that's how you get those nice clean takeoffs, is by understanding where that friction zone is and learning how to work within that zone. Another drill, if you're a more seasoned rider, is you can pick, and I don't have a good spot here to do it, and the place that I normally go to is actually occupied today, but you can pick parking spots, and basically what you do is you ride the friction zone and you weave in and out of parking spots like that. So you would go back and forth, pick another one, turn, move into that parking spot, and then you basically just go back and forth in this S motion. I mean, obviously you can practice it right here, but the idea within the parking spots is that you get to the point where you can go between one singular parking spot each time. The other thing about understanding the friction zone is understanding that when you're in a turn, that friction zone can really help you, and you can use it in first gear, second gear, whatever gear you're in, whatever you're taking the turn, you know, whatever gear you're in, you can do that. So if I switch to second gear here, I can ride the clutch in second gear and take a turn, you know, and then boom, I'm going. So the reason why you want to make sure that you're understanding that friction zone, or it's also known as riding the clutch, because I know I just said that, is the important thing to understand within it, what it does is it helps keep the bike stable. So what'll happen is that sometimes you'll see people, they'll go and they'll say, oh, you know, I was taking a turn and I tipped the bike and I crashed, or you'll see videos about it. And if you watch, one of the things that they do is they get nervous and they go, oh shit, and they pull the clutch in. So when you do that, you lose the power to your rear wheels and you lose stability. So you got to make sure that you are understanding that if you're starting to lose control, like let's say I'm taking this turn right now, you know, oh, I'm losing it. Oh, I give a little bit of throttle out and I stand up. You know, it's like, oh, I'm losing it right here. Oh, if I give it a little bit of throttle, straighten the bars out, the bike is going to stand up on its own. So understanding this friction zone is really important. I highly recommend it, you know, and really practicing it. You can go into parking lots and you can do the practice, you know, going through. Basically what you want to do is you want to come through one and then out the other like that, and then you would turn around and you would come back to another one. So you turn like that and you manage and you come through. So that's the ideal situation, is so that way you can practice like that. You know, the other thing you can practice is you pick a small parking spot and you say, okay, I want to take practicing circles in 3 parking spots. You know, so you say, okay, 3 spots. So that's what I'm doing right now. Okay, you know, I can do it in 3 spots now. There we go. And it's about learning how to control the bike. You practice that and you'll get better at it. I highly recommend doing that. That's one of the biggest things in my opinion as a rider. That's helped me. The last thing to remember also that I would say is really important when you're practicing these low speed maneuvers is not using the front brake. You want to be primarily using the rear brake. As a newer rider, I just recommend you feather your rear brake to control your speed. Don't even touch the front brake. If it helps, start wider and bring yourself smaller and smaller increments into a more comfortable zone, essentially, you know, to how wide you can make your turns, and eventually you'll be good. Just keep practicing, and you know, like I said, this is going to be one of those big things that will help you as a new rider or as an experienced rider. You may never have practiced this, so I recommend doing that. Every bike's going to be different on your friction zone. So one of the things that I always recommend is when you start a new bike, just kind of, okay, yep, okay, there's the friction zone. Okay, there's the friction zone. I do 3 times. Okay, cool. and then you can take off. You know, and obviously as a newer rider, you might have to do that a few more times, but it's what I recommend practicing. Anytime you get on a bike, you know, yeah, people may give you a hard time. Yo, what are you doing? You know, and you're like, hey, I'm just practicing. So that's what I recommend. Anyways, thanks for listening. I'll have another video coming out next week. Please like and subscribe. Have a good day.